All right. Good afternoon. Chelsea Collie here. Welcome back. I assume it's recording. And we're off and we're running. So welcome back to my channel. And just want to let you know we have an awesome guest today. We have the beautiful Sandra McKellis. Welcome, Sandra.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
Some of you may recognize Sandra from her channel, and she's off and on with Kimberly Palm. And, she's one of the beautiful, intuitive faces that's helping us navigate our way through right now. So thank you for your excellent leadership and your kind words. And I think the thing that I noticed most about you is that you're pretty quiet most of the time. But then when you speak, it's like, oh my God, so profound.
Thank you.
Yeah, so welcome. I'm so glad you're here today.
Well, it's my pleasure. I always love getting together with like-minded fellow friends from wherever they live and chatting about today's world and how the hell did we get here? How about we open with that?
It's been a whirlwind the last few years for sure. And it's been a crazy state. And there's just been a lot that's happened over the last, just 3 years, 3.5 years, to think how much our world has changed. But it seems like kind of like the good and the evil are rising, and it's almost like the war is becoming more visual. Like we can see it more, we can feel it more, the spiritual war that's been taking place.
Yes. Yes, it has. I think what we've had in the last couple of years is an opportunity to stop, drop, sit, and connect. We've been living life, not even realizing that we were on autopilot or in programming that had been passed down generation after generation. And I know sometimes we'll mention it's a shit show out there, right? But what is shit? Shit is the output of what you've taken in. Period, right? Whether it's your own or it's somebody else's, but joined together, it can create quite a masterpiece of mess. And that's really where we are at this point in time, is to put together new masterpieces of how to move forward by restoring our original consciousness and understanding that we have been, for lack of better expression, just been on autopilot. You can call it hijacked. You can call it whatever you'd like. I knew in 2019 something was a coming, but I didn't know what. And Spirit said, Sandy, I'm going to need you to take another hypnosis class, and I'm going to need you to take another such and such. And at the time, I was working 50 hours a week in cosmetic sales, and I'm like, how is this happening, right? But I managed to do it. And then when 2020 came along, and I sensed that this could be it, but I didn't realize it until I was in the middle of a parking lot with the office doors closed, and I couldn't enter because the ruling came down that everything was closing. So I sat there for a good hour just in the reality of, okay, we're here. The world is shutting down right before our eyes. Now, where's my place in all of that? And do I feed into what's coming through trepidation and fear zones? And the answer to that question was very obvious, was no. I just needed to be seated and in my own breath and navigate through uncharted territory. And here we are, 3 years, 4 years later, with all the residue and still in the middle of some very hot topics on that. Now, Spirit has always told me, don't go into politics, Sandy. Just don't do it. Don't go into religion. Don't do it. And in my personal life, all the way up to then, I never touched either. because I could be in a room with people who had many different opinions. I live here in DC. I could be at some social event and everybody's got a strongness about this and that. And some people will gravitate towards that based on their income bracket or their position here in DC, right? And then you'd have me that would just kind of acclimate around the room and adapt to whatever conversations were happening and clean my own energy and be neutral. So I decided to continue that because that's what spirit kept instilling. And I'm sure you figured out by now, and anyone else that follows me, and I really don't even like using that word. If anyone taps into listening to anything that I may put out, it's always about being real. It's about this moment in this time, and where do I stand in this moment, and how do I be the strongest in my physical, mental, etheric, spiritual, emotional self, while the world can look like it's in chaos. While it's spinning, how do I spin but don't spin out of control, where I no longer have the ability to stand for who I am? And most of us don't even know who that is because we're so full of programming that you really don't know who you are. You think as an adult you have choices, but it's not. It's a lot of it's autopilot run. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I developed my own past life regression techniques through my own personal experiences and being introduced to it back in the 90s and how much it changed my life, to empty out some of that. That's not me. That's something, that's another program back there. Or, hey, there's a golden nugget in there that is part of my conscious self. So we've done a lot of damage up to now, and we are here to break the chains, break the bonds, and wake up to the fact that there has been, and we've all participated in it in one way or the other, either consciously turning a blind eye, consciously understanding it, but enabling it through permission slips, through another lifetime that you may not even be aware of and that you don't even want to face because you're having the hardest time just keeping your 2 feet in this physical body in this year of 2023. So I can keep going, but I don't like to hog the mic.
No, I love it. I could just let you talk the whole time. I could just listen. But I mean, it's kind of like you glossed over something really important. It's like the true power is being present in this moment, like in the present. So we're not going to find our power by looking at anything else other than being present in our body in this moment right now.
Yeah.
And like, I was logging in on my phone just to see if there was any comments. We could maybe take questions later. It looks like there's maybe like a couple people watching, but no comments yet. But I'll check in towards the end of our talk. And if you have any questions for Sandra or any advice, like I bet she would be open to answering some questions towards the end. But so how do we get present in our body? Like, let me flip it back to you and just ask, because I'm starting to do the work, I'm doing the breath work, I'm doing the shadow work, and it's, how do we get present in the body in the best way? How do you go about doing that?
Well, so if you can understand that you are in this moment and you're nowhere else, even though there's fractals of you everywhere, and you know what, you can go into that whole realm of craziness. And again, it's a distraction of where you are in this moment. So it is a constant intention of hitting an override, because we are a pattern and hostage to our thoughts. And the only thoughts that we know are the ones that we've repeated over and over again. So even if we're a forward thinker, we're having conversations on the way to work about what we're going to talk about, especially if we need to take a stand on something, how I'm going to preempt these conversations. But really what we're doing is we're running off of old programming. And being in the present moment, we can do all the shadow work we want, but you're not even going to recognize your shadows until you start walking with the me, myself, and I in the right here and the right now. So much of the things that we're doing has been created by what social media wants to tell you what you need to do, right? So we have nemesis, we have little demons, we have the side of ourselves that just wants to, dive into that chocolate cake with two forks, one in each hand, and just go for it, right? But somewhere along the line, programming has said, no, you can't do that. You don't have good manners when you do that, and you're going to indulge and you're going to get sick. So from the time we're born, we start looking at everyone else for permission. That is how we are raised. Our children can learn to just look at our expressions and know if that's approval or disapproval. So there's so much I could say about that with kids, because I work with kids. I used to teach infant massage. I used to work on pregnant clients, in utero, so I could work with the kids in their dialogue prior to their birth. So that's a whole other topic. Let's talk about how do we start right here with the me. And that's really of overriding everything. So like, for example, I'm walking today. And as I'm walking, my walking patterns are muscle memory, right? My one foot in front of the other, you're going. And then next thing you know, thoughts comes in. And next thing you know, you're half a block away and you totally miss the scenery because you're in thought. So you have to stop in that moment and say, okay, whoa. What a beautiful tree. What a lovely piece of grass. What a lovely shrub. Look, listen to those noisy cars out there. Well, at least I'm recognizing that they're there and they're noisy. So you continue to keep overriding all the distractions around you. Now, how do you do that when you are busy during the day and you're being paid to do a job for someone else and there's no time to sort of be in you? You set your clock during the day. When I walk to go to the bathroom, I'm going to consciously be in what's around me, what's surrounding me. I'm going to surrender and breathe deeper. I'm going to intentionally feel my physical body. I'm going to see what that feels like. And then stay maybe a moment or two longer in the bathroom stall, maybe without your phone in your hand or having too much conversation around you, maybe just smiling and looking at the people coming in and out of the restroom, or as you're walking down your work hall or the grocery store or wherever you may be, you're just becoming aware. So it's like wherever I want my energy to go is simply where I put my attention. And that requires intention, not based on what you want the outcome to be, because you want to really be able to feel, for lack of a better expression, the good, bad, and the different. Because most of us come into this world with the first line of communication is being empathic. We learn through feelings of energy. Then we learn through sound, and then what that gets us from a parent through sound. The parent is trying to dialogue with the child's sound, right? What expressions they're making on what their needs are. So you see how early this all starts? Because we're all trying to dialogue with, the universe in a way that we all have different ways to communicate. But the number one line is being empathic. But what's the first thing we get taught as children? Oh, don't feel that way. That wasn't my intention. You shouldn't feel that way. Oh, let's make that boo-boo go away. Let's kiss it more. And okay, get along with your day, kind of thing. And we dismiss a lot of the feelings. So as we grow older, it's the number one poke in the emotional arena that can really trigger tears, hurt, pain, disassociation, and detachment, and how to suck it up and harden yourself. So now you learn to use mental. Now you learn to use different communications when we really have to go back to how we feel and how we communicate through being empathic. I hope that answered the question.
So in the beginning, you said stop, drop, sit, connect. So it's really just sitting and in that moment, like feeling your feet on the ground, like just feeling your body in your body, and then all of your body, your fractals that are everywhere else. It's like, come back to me and get in my body and feel what it's like to feel in my body. And then like find that piece of calm and focus on your feelings and what comes up, basically.
Well, yeah, you could call back the fractals of yourself if you choose to. One of the biggest things is connecting with your higher self, the guardian of who you are, the bigger sister, bigger brother of you, as your spiritual guidance. So let's talk about that for a quick sec. First, let's address the stop, drop, sit, connect with your breath. You could be running a marathon and stop, drop, sit, connect with your breath without ever physically stopping. You're just becoming aware who, where, what, taking a deeper breath. Taking a deeper breath automatically puts you into your body, automatically asks for the parasympathetic to start guiding me with a little more grace and ease and guidance, brings the calm back in. And when you do that, you will see, sense, and feel things in a different panoramic view once you tap into how you feel. Now, what was the other thing I was going to talk about? I just said, let's talk about that for a second. Yeah, you can't get upset with yourself when you can't retain a lot. So when I'm working with my higher self, they will bring things in and it'll just flow. And so when I think that's what we were going to talk about.
It's about connecting with
yes, the connection with the higher self. It's the mirror of who you are. It's the guardian of who you are. So you'll hear a lot of people talk about, I channel this, this, and that. Well, I always say, be careful who you're channeling. They could be naughty. They could be nice. Okay. There's a lot of inverted trickery going on, and you really just don't know. And again, that's the old programming. And I've told this story before, and I'll tell it really quickly now. 2017, I decided to retake one of the dozen different advanced Reiki courses I've taken. I decided to go and take it from another practitioner, so I might be able to learn in a different way from someone else's flow. And on the way there, Spirit, my higher self, is saying, you need to drop out all your programming, every drop of it, everything book learned, everything someone has told you, everything out of your programming. Just drop it. And it felt right, and it was easy to do. And so everything that was going to come towards me from then on out, I was to look at as if it was the first time I was seeing it. Even if it had a hint of familiar, I was going to look at it with a different frequency, from a different where I was. And I don't like to call it an elevated frequency or a higher frequency. It's just your dials on a different frequency. Okay. Sometimes we get higher and we think, oh, I made it up here. And so it has a connotation of, I'm down here and you must be up here. Therefore, you know more than I do. And so I'm very conscientious not to take that, where I put myself in that position, even though some people will still take it. When you're in a different frequency, you're going to start gathering information in a whole different light being your energetic information highway. So you might be like, aha, I've seen that a million times, but I never thought about it that way. I never heard it that way. So you're in a different frequency. So when we can drop some of this old programming, we're making space to be more grounded. We're making more space to saying, I'm inquisitive, I'm curious, I want to know, I want to learn, I want to see things differently. I want to decide, does that work for me, or do I like that? Or is that information not even relevant to my today? A prime example was when I was a kid, I knew Columbus never discovered the United States of America. And yet it was in all the books, it was in all the calendars, and it still is in some of them, right? But that's a program that we all know isn't true. It's been proven, but there's not enough people out there removing it. But it doesn't belong up here. I don't need to have that up there. It doesn't serve my today. I'm driving a different vehicle with different octane, with different frequencies now, because I'm looking at things differently. I'm taking them in with my physical sensories and adding my spiritual sensories to it.
When you sit down, like, do you ever sit down and connect to your higher self? I mean, or it's just like it's always an open connection.
We walk as one being. And
Does
back
she feel
in like
different than you?
mm,
Like, do you feel like
sometimes, yes.
yourself but elevated? Like, does
So
she have a name? Does
no,
yours have a name?
no, I've had other healers try to give it names. And I don't, it's just me. Just
Yeah.
my higher self is me. And so there was a number of years ago, I was trying to work on some different healing techniques. And in a vision, they showed me working on someone, and I'm standing there with my hands over someone, and there's a light being behind me. And then the light being came up and literally just encompassed and hugged me, became me. And then I could see the light around my physical, and I could see the amplification of the healing, the hands-on healing that I was doing.
Wow.
And so I realized then that we just merged. We merged. When we first met 5 minutes before that, I was speaking on a stage in this vision. Now you have to understand, I don't like speaking in front of people. I can goof off and be great, but at that time, I would have turned 20 shades of red and lost my page in the notes. It would never have happened. So it was a very bizarre vision for me to have, that I was standing there in front of a group of people with a microphone at a podium speaking, and this being walked in. They walked in. This was like 2016, 17. They walked in, and as soon as I saw them, I looked to see if anyone else could see what I was seeing, and then I didn't care what they saw. I was so connected and mesmerized by this being that nothing and no one existed. And we literally went forehead to forehead, even though this being really had no face. And as we went forehead to forehead, I kind of kneeled with this very tall being. And then next thing I know, it sat on the stage, and I was like, well, let me introduce you. So what's your name? And it would say, I am you, you are me. And I'm like, okay, well, what's your name? I am you and you are me. And I'm like, that's great, but what's your name? And then I realized that this was just a version of me that I was seeing in a 3D outside of myself, but they were really part of me. 5 minutes later, I'm doing the demonstration of healing, and it joins me, and it's never left. So how can I tell if it's like me yik-yakking or if it's my higher self? First of all, I merge and connect with my higher self intentionally when I need information. And sometimes the way it will come in will be a little bit different than if I was just doing my daily stuff. And they may use words or terminologies that I wouldn't normally use, but I'm not channeling, if that makes sense. I'm just dialoguing with a different aspect of me, of my consciousness, period. So when I say I hear things, I don't hear voices like I would hear you talking to me. That is not what I hear. I hear sentences and thoughts of my own thought. And since a child, I always saw pictures, like a short movie, or they would show me pictures, and then I would have to use my own vocabulary to dissect that picture so I'd have a better understanding of it. And that's how I've done my healing work since the 90s. They have shown me all of that. And it was in the 90s is when they brought in different ancestors from my clients or myself to be in the room. And I was self-taught. From that moment on, they self-taught me.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
And that's how I understood that there is a whole realm outside of the physical. And many of them are here working out things maybe they didn't get to finish here. So in some ways, I tried to dialogue with that and say, would that be the purgatory that I learned when I was a kid? Like you go to this neutral space before you go anywhere else. And then once I realized that that wasn't really a word that is, I just realized that they left their physical body, but they're still energetically here. And so I've worked with clients where a mother would come in and would be in the session, and we would go through different things through the session without boring everybody. And at the end of the session, there would be this mass forgiveness and love that you would feel the entire room, the energy just sweep like someone opened the door on a blistery windy day. You would feel it, and you felt that spirit leave to her next level, while the physical spirit was left here with loving forgiveness, not angry at some situations that happened with that being when they had a physical life together. It's very powerful. So that's when I learned in that moment of that one particular session that was so powerful. It was one of many that I learned that this world isn't just about me and my 5'4" body, that there is more. And this is a duty that we all have to life, whether it's in physical form or in energetic form. We have a duty that we're here to work with and to understand, to dialogue with, communicate with, to be better at what it is. That's our wake up, is to understand that. It's not to understand the financial system and, oh my gosh, do you honestly think that your paper money is going to get sucked away? And if you don't have a crypto or an invisible money, it won't get replaced. That whole N and G thing that was going around, Spirit had me stay completely out of, again, religion, finance, political, because none of it has anything to do with you developing the you that you're here to develop.
Right. I just had to take a few notes while we were talking because
Of course, I do the same when I'm talking with people all the time, because little bells will go off and I'll be like,
back.
I want to touch base on that. So I keep a pen in my hand.
Yeah. And I usually don't, not never, but I usually don't go back and look at my notes, but
it's okay.
I keep them.
That's okay, because I think this audience needs to understand that we had no design of where we were going. We did not have any preempt video chat before we came on here live. Hey, how you doing? Click live. Here we are. So we have no idea. And that's kind of how I work anyway, because that's also how I know the authenticness of my higher consciousness comes through, because I don't have any pre-thought, pre-plan, anything
Right.
that could trip me up, because that's where you get the ego. And that is also how I will know if it's my higher self or it's me, because my ego, which is a beautiful thing, by the way, you've got to learn how to walk together with it, will sound and act differently. It may have a little bit of a to it, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh yeah, that was not my higher consciousness coming through there. Okay. And as long as you recognize it, because that's the learning that we're here to learn, is when we recognize what is occurring, and that's how we start to play with the energy. We can feel the levels of energy, the density, and the lighter, are we rising or are we sinking? Where are we? Nothing is bad in it, because some of us need to be in this dense thickness in order to learn how to anchor better before we grow tall. We've got to have those roots. And again, that's teaching us to go back to our original consciousness and restore that, put that in the driver's seat, remove these programs, and remove the autopilot that puts you in repeating these programs. And that takes work. That takes work, my friends, to override that, create new habits.
So you were, just back up for a second. You were facilitating these spiritual healing sessions,
Mhm.
um, as a healer, right? And you've
Well, I
been
became a massage
sessions
therapist.
for how long? A long
So
time.
in the early 90s, I found and massage was not prevalent. People weren't going in and getting them. They weren't even cool. Um, and they were not, I'm telling you. They had a lot of sexual connotations. You never went and got a massage. If you did, it meant something else. But in the early 90s, I had to receive some for an injury. And I found the emotional breakthroughs that came from that, abandonment issues, memories, stuff started coming up that nobody could explain. And I had to create my own going through the obstacle course by myself. Just like as I grew up, I was very different. I sensed, saw, felt things very differently. It became part of my norm, and I had to go on my adventures by myself, but still fit in to the norm of the family and the day. So going off on my own path as a pioneer wasn't anything new to me. So the massage work helped me so much that I said, I have to go study this and give it back. And so I did. And then I did not open a place in my home. I went down the street to a medical center. Nobody else ever did anything like that. I did that here in Maryland. And when I did that, I hung my own shingle and I introduced myself to the medical field in the office, and I started getting pre and post-op surgeries. I started getting people who had been sexually violated to introduce touch. I started getting people with TMJ. I started getting a lot of different things, right? And so as these people were coming in, visitors would come in, and then I would be like, not fearful, even if some of them looked horrific and scary. I knew that nothing could ever hurt me, and I didn't even know how to protect myself at the time. I just knew I was protected because I didn't allow fear to enter, right? So I
We have a
allowed
couple
these
people
beings,
watching, and I know a couple of them will resonate with that, like
yeah,
manifesting Aaron.
yeah, you don't even allow it to strike a chord. You're like, nothing can hurt me. I have total control over all of this. And guess what? If I don't want you here, boom, you are gone because you're
Like,
not
I got
welcome.
this. Like,
Right.
I'm protected no
So there
matter
was
what.
an innate confidence within
I love
myself,
it.
although there were no energy courses at that time really that were feasible that I knew of, that were, long weekends and so on. I went and took Reiki 5 years later because I got sick of people asking me what kind of energy work I was doing. And I went, oh gosh, I guess I need to label it. Let me just say Reiki. And then after I did that, I did Reiki, Sikkim, and Sikkim. And after I came back and I said, oh, it's just Reiki. And when you said Sikkim and Sikkim, people eyes roll back in their head. And then it was like, what's that? I go, never mind. It's just energy work. See, none of it matters. Don't label it. So yes, I learned through a lot of show and tell with working with guides. But I will tell you this, there were people that came in for massage that were strictly for massage. There were people that came in, and when I was allowed, I knew to ask, am I allowed to tell this client this information? And for the longest time, the answer was no. It was no, you are not. It was for me to learn, for me to dialogue, for me to anchor, for me to become familiar, for me to hone in, develop, and skill so that my communication became stronger and my confidence level became stronger. Then and only then did they allow me to tell. And when they allowed me to tell, it brought that client to tears. I'm thinking they might just run away and never come back, right? But it
Right.
hit chords for them regarding both their parents that came in, and I described them to a T, and it helped that person so much that day when they left and I detached. I literally sat down for a moment and I was like, okay, that felt so natural. This is where I'm supposed to be going. Next, next, next. And it just keeps growing and going and growing and going. I just don't advertise myself really crazy because I like my customized, intimate one-on-ones and small groups with people. So I'm not in this for fame and fortune, for God's sake. I'm in it to be of service.
I love that. And you have, did I see that right? You have like over 900 videos?
I have no clue. I have
I
no,
think
I have
like
absolutely no clue. That's another
you
thing.
have like over
So in two,
900 videos on your channel. I'm like, oh
that's
my
funny.
God, this is like more
That's
people need to
hilarious.
be on your channel is so, it's so good. Like,
That's
so
hilarious.
good.
You know,
Everybody like her channel. It's just under Sandra McEllis.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I like when people like it and subscribe is because it helps the algorithms to keep it out, because one message could wake up somebody and save their life. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
It's a wake up call for all of us. But you know, in 2020, when it started, I knew not to feed into any of it. Spirit kept saying, "Stay in your lane, stay in your lane." I stopped taking phone calls from people. I literally, people just disappeared out of my life. I started taking longer walks in nature. You know, I didn't feed into any of the cray cray about it. I watched the squirrel show a lot. I got to know about a lot what the squirrels do during the day. But I worked on my sight. I got my sight to hone in so I could start seeing things in my sight. So I could start seeing. So I always asked, I said, hold on a second. If I can see everything with my eyes closed, get it here. Let's do it in my physical, because
Yes.
that's what we're going to do. So
Yes.
2020, I can't go anywhere, right? So I'm like, yes,
Perfect.
this is perfect. So I would
Yeah.
go downstairs and I'd meditate, and I'd open and close my eyes and I'd see textures. Then I would take walks. Then I would go sit in the middle of a ballpark with a bunch of other people, and I would focus in on honing in and letting them disappear and watching beings interact. And I could watch beings come in from other portals. One of them looked like a giant 50-foot, well, a lot bigger than that. It was bigger than the trees, ninja. And it just kind of popped in, looked at me, disappeared. I could see all kinds of things. And every day I love to go outside and play with it, because the more you practice on these other sensory systems, the more you're going to hone in and skill it, the more you're going to become comfortable. And you may never master, because we're not here. No one's ever really a master. A master's not going to say they're a master, because a master is always learning. We're always learning. So I'm just like everybody else. I am still learning. I just might be on a different point of a curve of someplace else that I've done a lot of work in that category, that I just know more about that. But then I also go to different healers or talk to different people and gather information, and all it does is help solidify some of the things I know, or maybe open a pathway and spark to more information that coincides synergistically with what is happening here. I've always known that I'm a bridge and an emissary for the other side, because I've had visitors from the other side that have appeared. I have daytime memories where they've allowed me to remember versus just a dream, where I've gone somewhere in my dream state. It's almost to the point now where I really don't do any, and never really was a deep meditator, because I never needed to go into altered states of consciousness to gain information. That was a program that everybody else was putting on you, at least for me, because I couldn't sit still in the 80s and 90s. And everybody would come out of a session in a meditative group and go, oh, I went here, I went there. And I'd be sitting there going, what is wrong with me? I didn't go anywhere. I was so in my body. I could feel my knee. I could feel my toe throbbing. I could watch my cells move. Like, well, that doesn't sound exciting. I'm not even going to talk about it. So I used to throw in the towel. I used to say, something is wrong with me that I can't do that, until I resolved was like, you can connect like that. You can stop, drop, and sit while you're driving. You can become aware. You just work on the merging of all of these sensories and trust the answers that you get, instead of looking at, oh, well, I got to go to this level. And that's what our schooling system teaches us. You're in the IQ system. You're in the system of, you've got to go to the next level. right? The next program, right? You got to get there. And so we're taught that everything is outside of us. But until you hone into the inner barometer of who you are, none of this is going to have the same language. It's not going to compute in the same way. It's going to be different. And then you'll let all the opinions, all the judgments just run around every which way, because it doesn't matter, because you already have a sense of your own inner guidance, and none of that's as important anymore.
So what do you think is the best way to basically ascend the crap that's, happening right now, and being stuck in it, there's like the whole kind of like truther movement where it's just like people are seeking truth. And, recently with the Sound of Freedom movie, it seems like a lot of people are activated by that. So it seems like, even the darkness is rising to the surface, and it's all like becoming very visual. The veil is becoming like thinner and thinner than it ever has been before. And like, it seems like even like, some of the people that were more asleep are starting to kind of like wake up to kind of like, hey, the media is lying, and, slavery is worse now than it ever was before, and it's a fact, and it's a statistical by our own GOVT facts, that about the children and everything like that. So how do we ascend it? How do we, now that we're seeing all the negative, but we're present at the same time and we're learning the lessons, how do we ascend all that crap so that we can truly just create the world that we want to create?
Well, so as soon as you started asking that question, I was hearing the word declutter big time. And, that's declutter our homes, declutter our minds, declutter our toddling fingers. You're not going to know what treasures you have when you have everything piled on top of everything else, right? And right now I'm being shown like your dinner plate. You don't pile everything on top of each other in the middle. You put everything so you can see it, taste it, enjoy it, whatever, right? Identify it, right? So decluttering is one of the biggest things. 2, Spirit showed me, and when I say spirit, we're talking about my higher self. We're talking about my direct connection to source. Okay. So there's many people on this antenna, right? Riding along with me, guiding me. And that is polarity. So we're always taught black, white, good, different. We're always taught that. And we're taught, that, at one point all we have is chocolate and vanilla ice cream. Well, we've got everything in between now. And unfortunately, we've allowed a lot of that to really bog us down and distort the enjoyment of one or more of those things. We have the sliding scale of it either has to be over here or have to be over here. Truth, that's going to be a tough one because we're sort of being archaeologists and digging through what's been buried, and it takes a team of us to do that. And so let's just say we're digging up ancient cities, and we could be on opposite parts of that country digging in the same vicinity, and I may find a piece of it, you may find a piece of it, and then we say, this is where it is, right? And then people have to decide, is Sandy the truth? Or do we go over there and dig? Or is Chelsea the truth? We go over there and dig. The truth is going to be buried everywhere. And we just have to step away from the whacked out climate controllers that are telling us here on the surface what's what. So I wouldn't get caught up so much on what's truth, because your body will tell you what resonates with you, and your body will tell you what is a distraction. And when we talk about The Sound of Freedom, this is a movie that just brings something horrific that has been going on forever. And, you know, it brings it to the light, and it was tastefully done. So it just gave you an idea. However, does this movie awaken you to having a peripheral view of being aware of your surroundings and what could possibly happen in your demographics on a daily basis? Or did you see this movie and it happens to everybody else but you? So you go into denial. Did you see it and now it just makes you ache for every child, right? Because they didn't even touch or scratch the surface of a lot. Because I think that we need to get a little more graphic. I do. And I think being honest about the graphics of children being stolen, taken, adults as well, being used for body parts and organs, being used for whatever it is that makes somebody else money because they have no value for human life. And with that being said, I'm hearing it's not just about human life, it's what's been created to look like human life. So we have clones and all kinds of things that are used for those parts.
It's not just child trafficking.
Yes.
What are the numbers on SRA?
I have no clue.
Unknown.
Yeah.
Because they've never been done.
Yeah.
It's truly, truly scary. And I was thinking about just hearing from one person's story, you know, the number in the thousands. And she was just one person, you know.
I mean, just look at the you too movement, me too movement. Look at all these things that are coming out to the surface, because we are actually here to stop being afraid of being persecuted for standing up for what we believe in. And so the more of us that want to stand up for what we believe in, please make sure it's something that you actually believe in, not a program that's told you that you have to believe in it. There are ways for many people to stand up, whether it's energetic prayer, whether it's physically doing the energy work, whether it's aligning yourself, whether it's joining a group, whatever that is for you. You don't have to become part of a movement to be part of a movement. So every singular person plays a part in making change and making wave in the energy, right? It's already happening by all of our light body friends in Mother Earth. It's already preordained that this is what would occur, right?
I think we need to have some moments where we literally just gather all over the world and we get together and we stand in love and we just ignite the love.
Yes. And that's it. You don't have to ask for anything else. When you shine the light on something, it shows you everything. But if you shine the light with love, it douses everything with love. And everybody has a choice on their lessons that they're here to learn. If some people need to stay in a denser part of their energy longer, again, I think they're there to anchor. People have to have a visceral wanting to change, but we don't all have to wait until we're hammered over the head or we become aware of it through somebody's movie that was made 5 years ago to even bring this out to the surface, so that we have freedom to discuss, freedom to talk about it, freedom to share light on a subject, freedom to now move through our demographics and just keep our heart in a space of being anchored and aware that it takes a village, a community to raise everybody else, children and adults, by being the living, walking example of what it is that you want. But we're taught to live in fear. We're taught to live in fear. Don't approach somebody else's child. Don't say too much. So if you're in that environment, douse with love. Just smile and just yell out to the mom, good job. Or yell out to the child, hey, you're so adorable. That's a great job. Look at you. You know what I mean? There's ways that we can enforce these things so that we're bringing people together. So people are seeing that there's more goodness in humanity then there is the dense and darkness. But right now we're shining the light on all the density, which people want to call darkness, because it's been the taboo that you're not supposed to talk about. The shame, the guilt, the blame, the lower, denser energies. That is what's being brought to light, so that it can now, instead of you taking it on and it empathically weighing you down, you got to learn to work with your empathicness. And that takes a big balance of being empathetic and apathetic. There's a balance there that you have to have, because you can't feed into it with all of one or the other, because then you're imbalanced. So we're really here to set the scales and recreate the scales is what we're here to do, and to awaken that we've been off balance way too long, and it's causing harm and destruction. And this is no longer acceptable. So if I myself can stop buying water bottles and contribute to whatever plastic chemicals that are happening anywhere, if I myself can say no to GMO foods, if I myself can say no to what blah, 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 and then put my energy into what fortifies and raises the energy of my vibration. And if I raise the energy of my vibration, it automatically emanates and begins to raise the energy of someone else's. But it's their choice on whether they decide to ride along, because they're in their own lessons too. So it's not up to us to drag everybody in the same direction we are. I can be aware of something and not contribute in the way a lot of other people do. And that's pretty much what spirit teaches me. I come at it at a different end. And then what I do is just as important. And then if I was at a county rally to change something that's about to be put into the school board, you know what I mean? I can work on it from this end. So we have to understand that we are the power. We have the power.
All right. Well, we are the power. We have the power. And I do feel like there's an opportunity for us to unite together en masse. And like we could even, send love to the children. Like me, in honor of like all the victims and current and past, of the, traffic and all the other things. And then just unite. We're transcending that. We're recognizing their pain and we're transcending that pain together. And we're just sending love to the children, love to all children. And, we're busting through those barriers. So, I think
but I have one thing I want to say about that.
Okay.
So Spirit asked me, Sandy, are you praying for the children? And my answer was yes and no. And the explanation of that is I pray and send energy for awakening for those who are in positions where they're creating harm in any way, shape, or form, whether it's to children, other adults, whatever it is, because this is on a mass scale on so many different levels that we probably couldn't even comprehend. And we're being shown the light being into the darkness, baby steps, but now it just looks like the flowers blossoming and we're seeing a lot, and it's too much for some people. But we've also got to pray for the predators. We've got to ask for the aha moments and for them to be able to stop, drop, sit, and work with their own consciousness and say, no, I can't do this. I won't do this anymore. I will not prey upon or be the predator of another being in my life. And so, yes, I pray for the children, but I also pray for the predators.
Yes, because we want people to step forward and be honest.
But we want it to stop. We just want to stop, right?
Right.
And, this sickness didn't start overnight, but we can, in groups, work with changing that energetics. by first changing it within ourselves. We have to first work on ourselves, period. Anchor that, become stronger with that, because that transmitter is going to work with all the energies, receiving and giving, receiving and giving. And you've got to be the strongest beacon of light to emanate all of that. And then you'll see things in a different veil, through a different veil. It'll be much more translucent. You have to be able to handle it. I hope that helped.
We have to be strong through this, and we have to be able to transmute that energy. And it is a lot of energy, what you're talking about. And we have the power, like we already have the power within us. We are the authors of our own life. We are the driver of our own car of life. We are in control. And so that is like really scary, because really it is all about our perception, and our perception is reality. But at the same time, it's very exciting because we are in control. Oh, like we have the power to change our whole world just by changing ourselves. So it's exciting at the same time. And so we just have to learn how to let it flow and step into our power.
Yeah, and if you want to be part of the solution, you've got to get out of the altered states of consciousness and get into the realness of who you are in this physical vehicle. And you do have control, and you can make a difference, and you can drive down many different paths and recreate and let go of some of the stuff that's been placed in, for the obstacles that are placed in front of you.
Right. We have the power to do that. So very exciting. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
You speak so eloquently. So I love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, we should do this again too.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everybody.